Hi, my name is Shoto, and I am a monk at SokukoJi, where I am committed to training my mind under the guidance of my teacher, Sokuzan. We rely on your support for much of what we offer here. This includes building projects to create space for full-time and part-time practice residents. Thank you for your help.
So there'll be a lot of room for questions if you have them. One thing I wanted to mention here, not so much a talk title, but just something I wanted to point out to you, and I would ask you to just see if you can be aware of that in your interactions, not only with yourself, with what's happening with you, but what seems to be coming to you or as someone else. And that is a kind of, when I say just receive or just observe, one may think that's fairly easy to just sit and just receive, or very easy to just observe what's coming, or receive or observe rather what's going on. That can be very, very difficult, a lifelong practice of doing that, because quite often when we observe something, we talk about it to ourselves. We have little chats with ourselves about what we are observing, whether it's a pain in the leg, or whether it's a noise down the hallway, or whether it's something one of our in-laws said to us yesterday. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get too much of a storyteller here, but it's like that. The kind of observing, the kind of receiving I'm pointing at and I teach is one where you do not know what you've just received. You do not really know exactly what you observed. It doesn't mean that there won't be some understanding that has a relative dynamic, but usually it's quite low, and it is not strong enough to fuel that part of the consciousness that creates so much chaos in the world called ego. I'm not sure that the ego will starve in that area, but it's going to get pretty damn skinny and not be quite as muscle bound. So please look and see when you're observing if you're creating little wrinkles and whatever shows up. Should be a clean, straight, flat curtain, not a curtain with several little waves or dynamics you've imputed into it to more personalize it so you feel more comfortable with not knowing what you're looking at. One of the biggest challenges I have as a Dharma teacher, my only credential I have, you have to give it to me. And if you don't give me the credential, I can't teach you anything. So you have to at least consider that what I'm saying or doing to you or with you or as you or for you or in any way is a teaching. That's kind of a hard one, because that sounds like, does that mean I let you off the hook no matter what you do? No, I'm saying try to consider it as a teaching. That's all I'm saying. Consider it that way.
Ninjaban, I wonder if we have to consider every point of view. If we have to try even understand to everybody. It's tired. It's hard. Thank you.
I didn't get that being as a question so much as it sounded like a statement. So I have no response to it. I'm not disagreeing with it. I just don't have a response since it doesn't seem to be a question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Since questions have started, we can keep going if you'd like. Yes.
You, Devon, I'd like to ask her a question if I can.
Mm-hmm.
Should we consider everyone's point of view or position?
Should I just say it in a low voice or yell? Or do you mind? I'll say it in a low voice. No. Because there's no way you know what another person's point of view even is. They just present to you what they want you to see or hear, and then you laminate all of your preconceptions, judgments on top of it, because you're not capable of receiving what is in front of you. That's what the spiritual path is about. Not about agreeing with anyone. How's that?
You know, when someone asks us to consider their point of view, are we just doing our best to understand what they're saying?
It's just a conversation. They happen all over the world. Where do they get? Not very far. I'm not saying that things aren't reconciled or understood or clarified through conversations. Quite a bit they are. But there fundamentally is no conversation. If you think there is, then you are hooked by the very thing that is hooked, has the whole world hooked, and it is hope and fear. And it's duality, belief that there is something else, a friend, something else, an enemy, something else, something that is insignificant. Not concerned about that. I don't care what happens to those people. They're not my people. Go ahead.
No, thank you.
Well, Devon, so then what is the point of communication when we're in front of somebody else and they're giving us, we're sharing each other's point of view? Are we,
You're gonna have to simplify that question. What do you want to know? That's the question.
I want to know if we can ever truly receive when we're on the path, and is it more awareness that we're not receiving?
Are you gonna be me an either or there?
Can we truly receive another person?
No. You cannot.
What is the point of communication?
It's the intention to receive, not the accomplishment of it. It's always the intention. It's always about awareness. You don't have to accomplish anything. If you're accomplishing things, you've just dropped down to the feet on the ground, the mundane path. Not incorrect. Do that. Maybe you need to get a degree in physics, or maybe you need to run for a public office. Maybe you need to be a social worker. Maybe all of that. Go ahead and do all of that. But don't necessarily kid yourself into saying it's a spiritual path. Spiritual path is extremely difficult. There are not many people can even walk on it, let alone step on it in the first place. And quite often, once someone gets on it, it is so terrifying, they have to blame somebody in such a way to get excuses so they can leave it. Not accusing anybody of anything. I'm speaking out of what I'm looking at. Go ahead.
Divine, so when we're with others and receiving, when we're with others and
Yes.
intending to receive, can we trust any production?
You can't trust anything. Nothing is trustworthy because everything is built on different elements, different aspects of the illusion that look like singular things that support this and don't support that. It's way too complicated to gather it all together and come to any kind of conclusion that's going to work for more than 15 minutes. Nothing lasts. Impermanence is everywhere. Everything that shows up as something is dismantling, deconstructing without even being touched more.
Divine, then when we're receiving what is showing up for us when we're talking with somebody else, we just go with,
Don't do anything. If you're just sitting here, just listen to it.
Divine, but it seems like sometimes people just listen and that's an excuse for no action.
It can be. That's a falsified kind of observing or trying to appear like someone who's listening or observing. People can get very good at that, appearing very accommodating and observing, and they can even get a slight credential out of it. But if you actually observe, if you actually receive, you will not know what you're observing or what you're receiving in the sense that we do relatively when we know that someone has just put eggs and toast in front of us. very simple, wasn't there, and now it's here. So we work in that illusion constantly.
So I'm
There
just
you go.
wondering, how do we take into account the idea of skillful means with spiritual materialism?
So skillful means, or upaya, is a way of talking about the way wisdom can function when it's functioning as some kind of operating within the illusion that is relatively untrue, but it's there. It has hooks, it has nerve endings, it has eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, part of the illusion. So skillful means there shows up as I understand it. As I understand it, is don't do anything unless you have to. Because if you're operating out of guesswork or speculation about, well, this person needs that kind of help or that kind of help, there's a good chance that no guarantee of it, but there's a good chance that you're actually meddling with what that person needs to see themselves, rather than you're thinking, well, I'm not being helpful. I need to be more helpful. And sometimes people will even ask you if they're being helpful. Somebody has to ask you. It's just the beginning of self-deception. If you function, any of you in here or on screen are functioning as a student of mine, I'm very likely to ask you if I'm helpful. You might come back and tell me I'm not very helpful, and I might scratch my head. Okay, now what should we do? I quite often have people 1 week tell me that's very helpful. What you said was very helpful, and then in the very next week go a different direction altogether. They were actually lying to me. Not to me, they were lying to themselves. Don't make up things. Have a willingness to not know what's happening next so that you can get closer and closer, to use a relative description there, to the actual truth itself, which is wisdom. It does not have a location in time or space, and it does not exist. It has no manifestation. Yes.
When you bowing, will we know actual truth?
If actual truth shows up in consciousness as it is showing up in this human form, you won't. There's no one to know that, because wisdom doesn't have a knower part to it. So therefore, it could seem completely confused and crazy. But since you are no longer separating yourself from your true nature, which is consciousness only, you don't care how you feel. You don't care how it looks. You are not going to be drawn into a war in Gaza. You're not going to be drawn into any kind of attacking others because of this. It won't happen to you. That doesn't mean that tomorrow you won't pick up a protest sign and march downtown. That may happen too. You cannot find the causes and conditions with a drink with a, that might be a good idea, drink with a direct link to the truth, because the truth is not separate from anything. It is this. There is no separation here. If you don't see it, you'll hurt yourself, and you'll hurt others, because you're suffering so much. The only way you can get rid of your suffering is to blame others for what's happening here. Let me take one more here from Winyo, and then I'll go to your question. Yes, go ahead.
When you're bowing,
Go ahead.
is Buddha nature truth?
It's a word that points to Buddha, means awake, and nature means just a quality of something. It's a relative way of talking about something that cannot even be described. Because in order to describe something, it has to be over there, either conceptually in the mind or over there in time and space. But wisdom is not over there. That's why we always keep looking for something else, using the illusion of duality to try to get somewhere. There is no such thing. Better than that, worse than that. Better because you're liberated, nothing left to do. Worse than that because you do not get a credential for this. It is Buddha Dharma, awakened truth without credentials. There are no proof. This is not a courtroom. You will not know you're awake. If you do, you have work to do. Yes, sir.
Show bowing. If we don't care how we feel, do we also not care how other people feel?
That's what you care how other people feel. But that doesn't mean you're going to kiss their butt or do something to artificially help them cover up their own passion, aggression, and ignorance. You're not going to help them cover that up. If anything, with their permission, you might help them to actually look at the discrepancy in the mind stream called correct and incorrect. Go ahead.
Show bowing. So caring about how someone feels does not mean protecting them from how they feel.
Don't protect anyone. Don't protect anyone. Protect the Dharma. Don't, because chances are you're getting a credential out of being a protector. You're doing something so that person can appreciate you and love you and think you're a wonderful person and all of that baloney.
Yes.
You know, should we defend anyone?
I think it's situational. Maybe a time when you would, there may be many times when you might think about it, but it just doesn't seem appropriate. But I wouldn't set up a standard of defending this or defending that. Protect your own mind. Protect your mind so it doesn't get full of all kinds of lizards and swamp animals.
You know, when we defend ourselves, is that sort of a red flag that we have something that we're stuck on?
Probably, but as you've heard me say a number of times, it's not about not being a certain way. It's not about never being defensive, about never getting angry. It's about being aware of it. The karma that shows up is this woman or this man or anyone on here is dependently arisen. That's why the illusion of otherness is so powerful, and so much feels like there's nobody like me. I have this personality. I have I'm highly skilled at this, but over here I'm failing at this and I need help with that. I can't do my own taxes. There's just so many descriptors that give us the illusion of we're a different person. We're a different height, we're a different weight, we're a different skin color, different. But how are we the same? Consciousness only. And if you really realize your true nature, then all these manifestations of otherness, all the personality, the characteristics, the qualities of one's own personality from one's heritage, one's culture, one's upbringing will be free to just come and go. Will not look for anything to agree with it or approve of it. And it certainly won't hide out and pretend to be totally even.
Bowing. I think you said to protect our own mind stream.
Yes.
Do we do that by returning to the teacher?
That's part of it. The 3 jewels: return to the teacher, a mentor, somebody that you, for lack of a better word, you can trust. It's not going to lie to you. It can't. They're incapable of being dishonest with you. And return to the teaching. Everything is dependently arisen. Nothing comes from its own side as a singularity called me or them. And that everything is in a state of distress or suffering. And then also the community or the people on the path that have a similar intention that you do to see the truth, not just believe a bunch of crap. Go ahead.
Bowing. I think you said that it's impossible for them to be dishonest, but relatively, you've even said you might lie to us. So what's the kind of...
I'm lying to you right now.
Is there a fundamental truth?
You heard what I said. Was that the truth? Reflect on it. You can't open your mouth without lying. I mean, it might be very subtle. What does it want to know?
Shadow bowing. You can't help but lie. How is it that you can also not be dishonest?
Same thing. Those are not separate from each other. It takes quite a bit of time to understand what that is through awareness practice. Because if you come to conclusions, this closes things up in terms of little pockets of truth that are avoiding the empty areas of untruth. The world is doing this in different degrees, intensities. It happens right in our monastery. It happens right in our book studies, right in our interactions between me, someone else in the Hojo, or out here. More?
Valen, when you started your talk, you said something to the effect that we have little chats with ourselves.
Yes.
So are any thoughts that arise just made up by consciousness?
More than likely, you can't think something, it just gets generated. It seems like we're creating it. It seems like we're thinking things and thinking this and thinking that. But it's not quite that singular of a person who's thinking about something. Much more complicated than that.
You're bowing. So the apparent other, is that just a little chat with ourselves then?
If I'm following you, perhaps. Quite often we have a talk, like when you're today driving over to see your daughter, were you talking to her in your mind stream about what you were going to say to her, anything? It's kind of like that. We're always chatting away. Not wrong. Not here to try to get you to stop this or start that. Just be aware that we're always fleshing things out and opening them up or deconstructing them to suit our particular predisposition for anything, for being protected or feeling like we're being protected, or that we're not vulnerable. Chisho.
Tishwaving, if you're truly receiving and you don't know what you're receiving, how can you receive the suffering of others? Bye.
Okay, you ask for it, and here it comes. There are no others. There aren't any. That's empty of other. But the only way you will know that it's empty of other is to endeavor to observe the vow, to be with all things, to save all beings. It has to show up that way. Has to show up, but you have to see it. If you have more, I'm here.
Tishwaving, that feels like a fruitional state of no other, but in a relative sense, for example, when you are dealing with a student, for example,
yes,
if you are truly receiving, and you said if you're truly receiving, you wouldn't know what you're receiving, then how can you receive the suffering of others?
That's the only way you can do it.
Tishwaving, then you wouldn't know if it is suffering.
That's right. You wouldn't you? Thank you. Yeah, you wouldn't know it.
Tishwaving, then what would be the difference? How would a teacher even respond to a student if they don't, in some sense, understand what the student is asking or where they are? Bhavin.
I don't know. You got me there.
Tishwaving, so even amongst a Sangha, between two people in the Sangha, if they are truly trying to receive, can there ever be a communication at all? Bhavin.
Probably not.
Tishwaving, then what's the point of the Sangha? Why wouldn't we sit on a hilltop and meditate, Bhavin?
What you are stuck on, my friend, is that you have a point. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Is it possible to ask a question without putting our fingers in our ears?
Being aware that you're doing that, to be aware that you're asking that you don't want to hear. So that's where the awareness starts, not at a place of control where you no longer block things out. You ask and you're really sincere because you really want to hear. That's more artificial kind of receiving. We want to improve before we before we get to the point where we realize how much improvement we really need. And when I say improvement we really need, the improvement we need is just to see the truth. It's very, very challenging and difficult, and it's fraught with all kinds of karmic stumbling blocks, depending on what karma brought you into this realm of the human beings in the first place. Probably have a lot of things to trip over and stumble over, but you have to see that's awareness of doing that. It's not about getting rid of obstacles, although it's taught that way in some traditions. I say, see the obstacle. Don't move it. Don't blame anyone for it. Don't get rid of it. Just be aware of it. Go ahead.
Is it failure from square one?
You cannot succeed. It's a spiritual path. It's a very, very challenging and difficult, and it's a constant disappointment, as was said by my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa. Yes.
How can disappointment be seen as liberating?
Probably never will be. It'll always be disappointing. Would you prefer cottage cheese to that?
I would.
We have to look very closely at the language we use and see that we're using a language to bend it this way or this way or this way to get into some area that is an extreme labyrinth, or what's the word that's used in the movie? The matrix. A matrix. It's like the warp and woof of the illusion of what? Reality? No, the warp and woof of the illusion that we are deluded by, that we think is there, that think is that. Difficult.
Divine, you say you meet us in our confusion,
I do say that.
and that you are a mirror.
I'm merely a mirror. Yes, go ahead.
So when you're receiving, are you also receiving a production?
Well, generalizing, it could be lots of different things, but just you show up, you ask a question, or you go this way or go that way, or tell me you're going to do this or that, or I just receive what's happening there without much added to it. If anything, go ahead.
It seems then if you're meeting us in our confusion, that you could look like you're confused by us. Is that true?
Yeah. I get quite a bit of that. Sure. There's the word for it is the in the Tibetans, I can't think of the Tibetan word, but it's crazy wisdom, because the wisdom that is completely liberated and is no longer contained by the illusion, is no longer deluded by the illusion of separation, is not going to make any sense to the consciousness that it shows up within or to other consciousnesses. Even if their intention is to follow a spiritual path, they still can have a great deal of difficulty with it. More?
Well, Divine, it seems like then it brings it down to our primary confusion is needing a right or a wrong.
I think I gave a talk on that recently, and there is no such thing. I'm not trying to take away from its I was think of a dumb example. It's not to take away from it's right and nice and kind to stroke a dog's head and say, nice doggy, and wrong to take a stick and hit the dog. If you want to go into there, yes, we can make up all kinds of right and wrong stuff. But that's not what's being pointed to when we come to the ideas of the concepts of right and wrong. It's the attachment to those that creates further chaos and confusion. Because what you're basically saying is that you have some control over this. You may have a little bit, but you don't have much. You don't create this. You do not create a hand. You did not create this body. There is no you. This came into formation or creation is an illusion. I could say more if you have a question about it. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing, are all four karmas of like the pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, and destroying, are all four of those occurring simultaneously?
Well, they could be. Go ahead. What do you want to know?
Shadow bowing. I'm thinking about when you teach, and I think it's in the sadhana, the Mahamudra, destroys what needs to be destroyed and cares for whatever needs its care. And when you're speaking, some people might be magnetized, but that same thing might destroy someone's connection.
Good.
And I'm just curious if that's all happening all the time and we're getting what.
I see what you're saying now. I would say so, yes. Pacifying, enriching, magnetizing, destroying. Depends on the chemistry between the people, between the so-called student, or the so-called teacher, or the so-called teacher. Which way am I going here? That is an illusion. But if you see that it's an illusion, then you can benefit from it. If you think the teacher, he, she, or they have to be correct all the time, culturally, you have to check and make sure they're not stepping on any of the cultural mores. That's not particularly a good way to look for a teacher, although some teachers teach that way and will harp on it. You have to have perfect precepts, and you have to have perfect, what's that other word? Nobody's gonna help me with that. And are there situations where people are observing their precepts in such a way that they're obeying something? I'm sure that a lot of that happens, but it's very important to observe what that is rather than just follow orders. Otherwise, you're not going to see liberation if you're just following orders. But you might be very, very good at following orders. Is there a question out there in the open spaces?
Bowing.
Yes.
From what do we need to protect our mind?
What?
From what do we need to protect our mind?
Passion, aggression, ignorance, hope, and fear. And the way you do that, you watch it come and go. You sit down, you hold still, and you watch those poisons come and go in the mind stream without grasping, passion, without rejecting, aggression, and without turning away or distracting yourself. Don't do any of that. Do it with awareness, with consciousness. Consciousness is not a person, not a thing. It's just wisdom. So that's how you protect it, with consciousness, not with rules and laws and guards and gates and AK-47s and a uniform code of military justice. That's a very primitive way of protecting anything. And all it does is gets us more and more and more warfare. Find out who this is, so you have no doubts. Don't get your identity from anyone. Don't get it from me. Don't get it from the Buddha. Don't insult the Buddha by trying to get your identity from that guy. Yes.
In that area of the teacher being right, I recall Trungpa Rinpoche says in one of his books that it's not even important that the teacher's right. It's more the attitude as if they were right. You're teaching us not to set up standards, and then we throw standards at you. Like, where do we get off?
It's the intention. You have to have the intention. I'm just here to encourage you to see your mind. And if you come to me and you have agreed to be a student of mine, which in your case you have, you're a fully ordained monk, and I ordained you until you walk off, which you could do. Been done before by a couple of times. If you do, then I don't know what it's like to be you. Maybe you can't do this. And when I say this, what is it? This isn't like the right way. Oh my gosh, if you don't do what I say, you'll never be enlightened. I've never said that. But you might need someone to mirror back or give you the feedback, because it's very difficult to see we are so good at fooling ourselves. I had myself totally convinced that I knew exactly what I was doing in 1990 when I met Kobun Roshi, 3 years after my tantric master had passed, and whom I had studied under intensely.
Will you mind?
Yes.
I'm caught on this line when you said we have little chats with ourselves. So are we inventing the apparent other?
Yes, we're doing that all day long. The conversation that you and I have is also full of what I thought you said and what you think I said, and then you respond to what you thought I was referring to. I might respond to what I thought you were referring to. We end up just continuing on with just self-deception.
So that's true with everybody we so-called meet.
Well, I'm not here to evaluate and judge, condemn everyone. I don't know what's happening with every single person, but it looks like there is a lot of confusion going on in that area where the communication is not, the receiving part is missing there. We don't really receive what's being said to us. As soon as someone starts to speak, sometimes we even interrupt them or finish their sentences for them. And we're, in most cases, not all, we're determined not to wait for the period. We'll wait till someone completes a sentence because we think we know what they want, or we know what they're going to say or something. Well,
When you're bowing, but if we're not separate from the apparent other,
we're separated. I'm over here, you're over there. Strong separation. Fingers are separate from each other. People are separate from each other. Clouds are separate from each other.
but am I creating that apparent separation?
Yes. You didn't deliberately create the sand. It's not that kind of creation. But it's consciousness is doing this, but the personhood is absent from there until you wave at somebody, then it's your hand waving. And then you impute the consciousness of the person who's waving. We create this whole scenario, screenplay of me and everything else. Yes.
Sure, bowing. It seems that we can start to see that we're covering something up. Do we ever see what we're covering up?
Yes, if you realize your true nature, you realize you've been covering up the truth, which is you're not separate from anything. You are ultimate. That's why you can't find it. You keep looking for something that you are.
Sure, bowing. Looking at that word realize, is that different than seeing something?
We're dealing with words, so we're going to be a little bit hindered by any word. But to realize is to, my idea is to realize, we realize that there's been a big brown bear standing in front of us for 40 years. It's like that. There's always been there. It's not a bear. It's not brown. It's not standing. It's not in front of us. It's reality, and we stop covering it up. And if you see it, if you stop covering it up, two things happen. And they're not actually occurrences. One is you stop fighting with everyone. And everything, you stop disagreeing with everything. You stop agreeing with everything. You stop ignoring everything. Just consciousness only. But if part of the illusion that is manifesting in front of you as another being comes up, talks to you and asks you for help, then you are on top of them. Bang! You don't even think about it. Or maybe not. Maybe they come up and ask you and you realize they're bullshitting you. And you say, I gotta catch a ride out of town right now. Cops are after me. Do you follow me a little bit? I'm being silly by what I'm saying. But I'm saying you don't make decisions. Do you see what this is? Like, decisions are gone. Everybody else can come and see what you're doing and say, you're making the wrong decision. You're not doing this right. You're doing this. There's going to be all kinds of judgments. People love to judge others because they cannot deal with their own lives. The only thing they can do is get rid of their suffering by pointing at other people. Not that the other people aren't pretty confused sometimes. Yes, sir.
That was it for now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? I promise not to yell.
Mielka bowing.
Milka better be good or I'm gonna yell.
I have questions from YouTube.
I bet you do.
Martine Bowing, is there a connection between curtains without wrinkles you mentioned and a state of not knowing who this is who meditates? Bowing.
Yes, that's very good, Martine. It's just, it's not boring or flat or beige or like that, but it has no particular characteristics. And any characteristics that do arise in the form of what we could call wrinkles or something, we see that those are unreal. And that the wind that blows those is also unreal. But that takes a while of watching the movement of the mind to eventually realize what consciousness is and see that consciousness is not only what arises in consciousness, it's consciousness itself. It has to be an understanding, Martine. You have to see it. If you see this, you will never have another question for me or for anyone. You will not have any question because you'll know there isn't anyone that can know this but you. You are the reality you're looking for. And I'm here to, with your permission, to kick you right in the butt until you see it. I happen to be a little bit of an outlandish teacher. You could even say mean. Some people do. And I would say if it's too difficult, then there's other ways. There's other very nice teachers out there. Used to be quite a few more. Some of them that passed away. You have a question?
I did, but I forgot it.
Interesting how people have a question and forget what it was.
Milka Bowing.
Yes, Milka.
I have a question on YouTube from Adriana Bowing. How can we cultivate and encourage awakening? Bowing.
So I don't know if you can deliberately cultivate it so much, but you can prevent it from being cultivated by wandering around chasing your tail, by doing this, doing that, by any number of physical, mental, social activities, and not wrong, entertainment of various kinds. But if you want to cultivate it, then you have to go right to the field that needs cultivation, to use your word. And what is that field? It's the mind. Sit down and look at the weeds in the mind. Just by the only plow that's going to work there is awareness. Any kind of mantras or visualizations, or I'm not saying those couldn't work, but you need to have a really close relationship with a Vajra master to work with it in that way. But I'm saying is you can do this yourself. You can sit down, hold still day after day after day, and look at the weeds and don't add to them, don't water them, don't pull them out, do nothing with them. Just look at that. That's how you cultivate awareness. Yes.
So bowing, when you shout sometimes and it scares us, when we're
That's scary. Yeah.
I don't think I got scared that time.
Okay.
But
Go ahead.
usually, when we do get scared, is that because our body, speech, and mind aren't in sync?
I don't know. Maybe. I used to think it was interesting when you're sitting in a meditation hall and you think you're all in the present, and then all of a sudden the gong rings and you jump. Pretty much a sign that you were in some kind of spaced out daydream somewhere. Brought you right back into the Zendo. So I'm not sure if that was what you're asking about.
Shadow mind, maybe it's not even helpful, but I'm just curious when we come back if that's those things joining back together for a second.
Seems like it. It's not about maintaining. You don't have to maintain awareness. And there are other meditation techniques which I've trained in and practiced and even taught. It's about maintaining being in the present moment. I don't teach it. I don't teach it because I think that's wrong. You shouldn't teach it. I just think there's a better way to do this. And that is watch what moves. It's basically Japanese style, some Chinese style of just watching what moves. Just this. Birds make a noise. Your mind rattles around, go into memories. Just observe. Go ahead, sir.
Shoulder bowing, specifically your teaching of watch what moves, was that something you heard first?
No. It's something the first thing I heard was observe. The shikantaza is basically just precisely this. So whatever is there, that's your object of meditation. My way of teaching it is to say, watch what moves. So that way you'll, instead of agreeing with your mind stream or disagreeing with it, or trying to shut it off, or think you shouldn't be daydreaming, you shouldn't be thinking, you shouldn't be sleeping. It's just whatever happens, look at it. The time to end. Yes. Mhm. So,
Teaching bowing.
you see,
What is the importance of intention? Bowing.
the importance of intention, as I talk about it, is put all of the energy in the intention and stop looking for results. So I emphasize intend to see what this is, rather than look to see if you are seeing what this is, or if your awareness is somehow stronger. Intend. The intention to save all beings is the only thing that can transcend this world. Be with all things. How do you do that? Look at them. How do you do that? Hang out with them. Don't necessarily go into some kind of judgment or acceptance, rejection, or looking away. It's very challenging and difficult to do, especially if you have no teacher, and if you have no teaching, and if you have no community. If you have those three, just like today, for the last several days, we've been able to sit in Ango together. I know a lot of you, quite a few people who have been here the entire day. That's a powerful practice to do that. And it's helpful to, even though someone's 1,000 miles apart, still, if we can do it with this technology, you're here, you have the intention to see what this is. Someone's sitting next to you, maybe you've never even spoken to them, but they're here and they have the intention to see the truth. Not just believe in Buddhism or believe in any damn thing. Don't even believe in Praticca Samuppada. Don't believe in the 6 realms, the 3 realms, the Eightfold Path. Don't believe in anything. But look at what arises in your mind stream. You realize it. Here's where you look. Look within. See the Buddha. Intend to see the truth. You intend to see that. Yes.
When you're bowing, is that results oriented?
Well, there may be some results. I mean, anytime you're doing anything, there's probably going to be some kind of results. But the results of intending to see the truth won't necessarily show up as seeing the truth. In the conventional sense, I finally see the truth. I intended to see the truth. I didn't look for results, and damn, anybody got Sokuzan's number? You gotta call him up and let him know that I think we hit the jackpot. And I want to thank him. Unlikely to happen, because there's no way you can know what the truth is. So therefore, you'll not be able to take your enlightenment template out into outer space and find enlightenment and discover it. There's no template for it. It's better than that. You're liberated. It's worse than that. Everything you've been trying to get rid of is Buddha nature. You have to see it. If you don't, you'll just fight. Not you, but any of us, yes.
You Dabang, is enlightenment different depending on the individual?
Oh,
You Dabang, so if you see the truth and you meet others who have seen the truth, will you all recognize that you've seen the truth?
yeah, you say, hey, man, right on. You got the truth. You looking at the truth? Yeah, I got the truth right here. What's it look like to you? Well, the same thing it looks like to you. How do you know that? Because you're a mirror, I'm a mirror, and we'd be mirrors looking at each other. Is that what you want to know? You won't know. It's worse than that. It's worse than that. It is astonishing, astonishingly the same. The polarity between up and down, back and forth, right and wrong, life and death, existence, non-existence, just comes apart. And I don't care how brilliant you are. I don't care how much of a doughhead you are. Be a polite way of saying it. You will know this what this is. You will know it here. You'll know it. You'll not need any confirmation from anybody. Need no more guarantees. You don't care if you continue to live or not, because you know who you are has never been born and therefore cannot cease. It's called eternity. Don't believe me. Consider it. I'm trying to encourage you to see this because I know it takes a lot of guts to do it. Yes.
It seems like crazy people might think that they see something that no one else does. Does the
They
Buddha,
do. They're crazy. They're rather crazy.
does the Buddha not see something that everyone else is?
Say that again.
Does the Buddha not see something that everyone else is seeing?
Say it one more time. Everybody in here is laughing, but Jacob, you need this joke explained to you. Hey, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. Okay, I am going that way. No, wait a minute. Can I stay in here? We're going to sit. So I'll stay here, and everyone who's going to continue and I'll stay here as long as my body will permit. So we can go ahead and return to sitting for the next 50 minutes or so. Very good. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shoto, and I am a monk at SokukoJi, where I am committed to training my mind under the guidance of my teacher, Sokuzan. We rely on your support for much of what we offer here. This includes building projects to create space for full-time and part-time practice residents. Thank you for your help.